This video is on fasteners. There are many different fasteners used on vehicles. There's washers. Here is a flat washer. It's all one piece. A lock washer, and if you look carefully, it's split and has some resistance, like spring, almost like spring tension. So it keeps a nut tight. When we put a nut on, this lock washer will keep the nut from coming loose. We have what are called cotter pins, and I wrote do not reuse. So it's very common when you put these in place, you bend the ends. You cannot reuse them because they'll be too weak to reuse and it could break. We have roll pins, rivets, snap rings, in which there's what we call internal and external, depending on how it's, see how the style's a little different of how the tool goes in to the two ends. We also have E-clips down here, which kind of looks like a snap ring, but it's a little different. We have many different types of nuts, lug nuts, which hold the wheel onto the vehicle, and you notice it's a tapered edge here. So when I say tapered, let me get it, there we go. When I say tapered, it comes in like this, and like that. So it's tapered. So that way it fits the corresponding taper on the rim, so when this is tightened, it will not come loose. We have what are called castellated nuts, because it kind of looks like a castle. It's got little holes in it. It's hard to see there. And that's for the cotter pin to go through. We have wing nuts. Your plain basic nut. Nothing special about it. We have nuts that have washers built onto them. Sometimes the washer is actually movable. Other times it's part of the actual nut itself. And we have what are called lock nuts. So what happens is, it's not, even though it looks round to you, it's actually more oval. And when you put it onto the bolt, it's going to help keep it tight. And some of these self-locking nuts also have a plastic insert on the inside that helps keep the tension. We have screws, in which there's self-tapping, so it'll start itself right into metal when you start it. Non-self-tapping types where you need an actual hole already for the screw to go into. We have what are called machine screws, which look more like a bolt. A nut will go onto the end here, and they have different head types, styles. I want to point out there are many different specialty fasteners. So I'm just going to go over the basics here. What you should never see on a car are nails. If someone's using a nail to hold something together on a car, wow, that is not good. Or if they're using a wood screw, so a Robertson square end. Alright, you should never find these on a car. If you do, someone's lost the original and tried to do a very poor job trying to fix it. We also have gear clamps and spring clamps. They're used to usually hold hoses on that have to do with the cooling system for coolant to run through. So this one's spring loaded. That's why it's called spring. And this one is an actual gear you have to turn with a tool, like a screwdriver. You have studs, which you'll see there's threads here. There's threads here. And this one has a hex fastener on it. It's all one piece. Nothing can, this hex cannot come off here. That's all one piece. Then you have studs that don't have the hex on it. So it's just threads and threads. Alright? Now, when it comes to fasteners, we have to deal with a few things in terms of measurements and strength and the number of threads. Well, first of all, before we get into that, hold it. Let's quickly go over head types. So on the drive end. So this is an internal hexagon. So, it's hard to see, I know in the camera there. But that's a hex here. So it's basically this shape right here. It's this shape right here, but this is external. Alright? We normally just call this a 6-point. Okay? And this is an internal 6-point. So it's kind of like belly buttons, innies and outies. Alright? Then we also have a 12-point. and they can be internal or external. Maybe if I hold it up like this, that'll be better. There we go. See it there? That takes a 12-point socket. If you want to take this off, where this would need a, or this, you should really use a 6-point socket to take that off. My goodness, we got a lean going on here. We have torques, which are a 6-pointed star. So it looks like this. They can be external or internal. Alright. So this is the internal. This is the external. Alright. They are a very common fastener on vehicles now. And then of course you have some fasteners use a Phillips head. Now, when it comes to bolts, we have to look at their strength and their length and diameter. So let's deal with these. When it comes to the length, you do not include the head as part of the measurement. So here I'm measuring from the bottom of the head to the end of the bolt. That is the actual length. Do not include this part. When it comes to diameter, don't include the head. So there's the diameter, just from the top to the bottom here. Not over here. And then when it comes to the head size versus diameter, to know what size wrench you need, if you look here, this is a 1/4 inch diameter bolt. But in order to tighten or loosen this bolt, the head is 7/16 of an inch. So you need a 7/16 wrench. Same for these, in terms of, there's a difference. So 5/16 of an inch diameter requires a 1/2 inch ratchet. A 3/8 inch diameter bolt requires a 9/16 ratchet. So when I say, oh, I need a 3/8 inch bolt, I'm talking about diameter, not head size. If I say I have a 3/8 inch diameter bolt, get me a 9/16 socket, the 9/16 socket is for the head to tighten and loosen the bolt. So you got to get used to the terminology. When it comes to strength, it is very important that we have the proper strength of bolt to hold the two pieces together that bolt is meant to hold together. We have metric bolts and we have imperial bolts. So when it comes to bolts, we have to look at the head of the bolt. The head of the bolt will tell us the strength. And for metric, the head of the bolt will have numbers on the top. So like 2.4, 5.8, or 9.8, or 10.9. And the higher the number, the stronger the bolt. So for example, this one here says 10.9. So that's a really strong bolt. Okay? This one says 9.8. Okay? When it comes to imperial bolts, which are measured now, I should make sure we got this. So metric, don't forget metric. When we deal with metric, we're dealing with millimeters. And when we deal with imperial, it's fractions of an inch. Should have mentioned that right off the top. Okay? So just remember, when it comes to basic measurement, imperial is fractions of an inch, metric is millimeters. Okay? That's important when it comes to all fasteners that have threads and that we use on vehicles. So, back to strength. Metric, we said, the top, for metric bolts, there'll be numbers on the head. Okay? And the higher the number, the stronger the bolt. For imperial, there's lines on the head of the bolt. The more lines it has, the stronger the bolt. So, this one, it's hard for you to see there, but it's got 6 lines on the head of it. Alright, you can kind of see it there. This one has 3 lines. So this one is not as strong as this one. Okay, so it's very important to use the proper strength of bolt, the grade, when you replace a fastener. Now, when it comes to fasteners, in this case we're going to use bolts, there's the thread. We have coarse thread, we have fine thread. It doesn't matter what size. So here's a 1/4 inch bolt, a 5/16 bolt, a 3/8 inch drive bolt, and don't forget, when I talk about this number, that's the diameter of the bolt. So 3/8 inch diameter bolt, 5/16 inch diameter bolt, 1/4 inch diameter bolt. So the diameter, okay? Not the head, not this part. But all fasteners, you know, are either coarse thread or fine thread, and we have to measure that. Okay? So here, when it comes to measuring that thread, if it is a metric bolt, okay, so here's a metric bolt, and how do I know it's metric? Because it has numbers on the head. So this is metric, and I want to measure how many, I want to measure if it's coarse thread or fine thread in terms of the amount of threads. So for metric, which I said is millimeters, it's the distance between two threads at the peak. So peak to peak. So here's this is called a thread pitch gauge. Alright? So if I'm going to try to do this here so you guys can see. Let's find the right one. Okay, so if I put this down like this, what I'm going to do is find the thread here that fits perfectly into those threads. And see, when I put that in there, there's light, no light. It fits perfect. It's like a perfect fit. So I know this little guy here represents the proper size. And it says on it 1.75. So what that means, that 1.75, it means from that peak to that peak, there is 1.75 millimeters distance between the two peaks on this bolt. Okay? So that's metric. When it comes to imperial, we measure TPI, threads per inch. Alright? We're going to measure how many threads there are in 1 inch of distance on the bolt. So we have a thread pitch gauge for imperial bolts. And once again, if I take this, put this here, I'm going to pick the one that I think fits the best. I put that in. That's a perfect fit right there. Okay? Alright. Fits into the... get it so you guys can see. There you go. Alright. Fits perfect. That says 13. So what that means, in that 1 inch of bolt right here, there are 13 threads. And that is how you measure an imperial bolt. Okay? So, I also have a little tool here that hangs up on the tool board. Right here, come over here. It's going to sit right here, along with the thread pitch gauges, that you can use to measure the diameter of a bolt, and also the thread pitch, or if it's metric, the distance between two threads. Plus, make use of these. Okay. I also have some reference sheets if you need them. But be aware, there's a lot of terminology that goes with fasteners, and it's very important to understand it so you operate fasteners properly, pick the proper fastener, can identify it properly. And one other thing I should point out when it comes to fasteners, when it comes to metric and imperial, okay, there are similarities when it comes to the head size. A 1/4 inch imperial head, so like if you were going to use a wrench or a socket, 1/4 inch is the same as 6 millimeter, 5/16 same as 8 millimeter, and so forth. So there are some sizes between metric and imperial that are the same, and others that are in between. 11/16 is in between 17 and 18. This will be hanging up on the tool board right here, okay? So you can find it. So that is my little video on fasteners. I hope that you watch it and learn from it, and you can refer back to it anytime you need to. And that's all there is to say. Yeah. Have a good day.